We continue our reading of Lest We Forget, a daily devotional by author George R. Knight. Today's reading, March 14, the Sabbath and the Apocalyptic Vision, Part 3. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. In our last reading, we saw that by January 1847, Joseph Bates had concluded from Revelation 12:17 that God would not only have a people at the end of time who would honor the Ten Commandments contained in the Ark of the Covenant, Revelation 11:19, but that the dragon would make war with those commandment keepers. It didn't take too much more study to see that in time conflict reflected in such passages as Revelation 13:7 and 8, which describes those who worship the beast as making war with those who follow the Lamb. From chapter 13, he went to chapter 14, which describes the end-time worshipers of the Lamb as following the Lamb wherever he goes. Verse 4. At that juncture, Revelation 14 became the focal point of Bates' study in the second edition of the Seventh-day Sabbath, a perpetual sign. Before looking at his conclusions, we should note the outline of chapter 14 itself. 1. Verses 1 to 5 introduces the end time, 144,000 who follow the Lamb in all his teachings and have his Father's name written on their foreheads. Verse 1. 2. Verses 6 and 7 present the first angel's message. 3. Verse 8 reflects on the second angel's message. Number 4. Verses 9 to 12 set forth the message of the third angel. Number 5. Verse 13 highlights the fate of those followers of the Lamb caught in the end-time persecution of Revelation 13. Number 6 and chapter 14 climaxes with the coming of Christ in the clouds of heaven to reap the harvest of the earth. Verses 14 to 20. The progression did not escape Bates as he struggled to understand where God's people were in the flow of end-time events. Interestingly enough, certain Millerites had emphasized the first and second angel's messages. Miller himself had believed that the judgment hour message of the first angel was being preached in his day. To Miller, the judgment of verse 7 was the second advent. Charles Fitch began to proclaim the second angel's message on the fall of Babylon in 1843, when the denominations began to persecute the second advent believers. But it would be the content of the third angel's message that would capture Bates' attention. Before you pray this morning, it would be a good idea to read Revelation 14. And this concludes our reading today of Lest We Forget.